Hi everyone. Today I want to talk to you about laboratory safety. So we want to make sure that you understand the rules and you know what to do in case of emergency in the lab, or what are things that you should be doing and what are things that you should not be doing. So let's start with the first laboratory safety rule. Eating and drinking is prohibited in any laboratory. You are not allowed to be eating and drinking in the lab. However, let's say you come from home and you have your lunch and your water with you. You don't need to leave this one outside the lab. Just make sure they are on a package or they are sealed in the floor or in your backpack. As long as they are not on the table, you're perfectly okay. Be very careful with water containers. Make sure that you bring a water container that is sealed. We don't want to have a spill on the floor that will create a dangerous situation. So make sure that you bring your food package and it's in your backpack or your lunchbox, and your water is on a sealed container. So let's move forward with the second one. In the lab, please wear footwear that will provide full coverage of your feet. We don't want you to be in the lab wearing flip-flops. I know that it's probably in the summer, it's hot, it's 110 degrees outside, but in the lab we need to be careful. Please bring something that is covering your feet. You don't need to get special boots or work boots for the lab. Just make sure that you have something that is covering your feet. You don't know what should be falling from the what could be falling from a table, hitting your toes and sending you to the emergency room or something like that. Number 3. Appropriate apparel shall be worn in the laboratory all times. Avoid bulky, loose, or trailing clothes. Avoid long, loose hair. Remove metal bracelets, rings, or watch straps when working in the laboratory. This is very important. If you are wearing clothes, make sure that these clothes are not something that could potentially create a problem or hazardous situation in the lab. If you're in a mechanical lab, these could be tangled with some pieces of equipment, or they could catch fire with something else. So make sure that if you're wearing a bulky sweater or a bulky jacket, take it off, put it somewhere else, and then start working in the experiment. Also, for the electrical engineering lab, metal rings and metal bracelets are very dangerous. You don't want to be putting your finger inside a circuit that has some current and voltage and you're wearing a finger. These could short out something on the circuit, creating a fire, creating a spark, or shocking you. So make sure you're wearing something that will, if you're wearing these things, remove them before going into a lab or before working with the experiment. Appropriate eye protection and other safety equipment shall be properly done when using toxic chemicals, operating mechanical equipment, or as directed. Okay, so in the case of the electrical engineering lab, most of the time you will never be required to use eye protection. However, in the case that you are required to wear this eye protection by the TA. You should be wearing it all the time. Saying something like, I'm not working on the experiment, I'm not wearing my safety glasses because of that. Even if you are in the lab and you are not working on the experiment, if you were asked by the TA to wear eye protection, you should be wearing it all the time as long as you are inside the laboratory. All occupants shall be familiar with the locations and operation of safety and emergency equipment, including but not limited to fire extinguishers, first aid kits, emergency eye wash stations and emergency showers, emergency power-off system, fire alarm pull stations, emergency telephones, and emergency exit and egress plans. Make sure that you know where all these safety equipment or safety mechanisms. However, in the lab, if we have a safety shower, you should not be pulling that safety shower all the time. It doesn't matter if you want to know if it works or it doesn't. That's something that the university or the staff is checking, making sure that the safety equipment is working properly. The same goes for fire extinguisher and other type of safety equipment. Your responsibility is just to know where it is and you know how to use it. If you don't know how to use certain piece of safety equipment, you can ask the TA or the lab assistant or the professor, and they will be happy to explain you how to work with this safety equipment. Unauthorized person or persons shall not be allowed in the laboratory for any reason. Authorized means having official university business in the laboratory with the permission of the Department of Physics, Engineering, and Astronomy. Please If you are bringing your friend, your girlfriend into the lab because they're waiting for you to finish an experiment, that should not be happening. The lab is only for you to be working in the lab. If someone needs to wait for you, please ask that person to wait for you somewhere else. There are sitting places outside the lab, or there's the cafeteria somewhere else. But please try to avoid bringing friends and family into the lab, especially because we don't want to endanger someone else. Also, if you are in the lab and you see someone suspicious entering the lab, please notify the TA or the professor. They will basically make sure that that person is authorized to be there in the lab. Laboratory shall be secure when unoccupied. If by any reason, that typically this will not happen, but if by any reason you are the last person leaving the lab and the lab will be basically unoccupied, please make sure that you close the door and the door is locked. If there's another lab in 1 hour, 2 hours, and you are leaving the lab, that doesn't mean that you should leave it open. If you're leaving the lab and the lab will be unattended, please close the door and make sure that the door is locked. Never open or remove a cover of any equipment in the laboratory. Never jump, disable, bypass, or otherwise disengage any safety device or feature of any equipment in the laboratory. This is something that a lot of students believe because I work at Radio Shack or I work as I don't know, you know how to repair some type of equipment. You're authorized to open and check the equipment. As students and as professors, we are not authorized to open and basically fix any piece of equipment. That should be done either by physical plant or someone that has proper training within the department. So please don't do it. Don't open and check if the laboratory equipment is okay. Before equipment is energized, ensure that 1. The circuit connections and layout has been checked by the TA. 2. All colleagues in your group give their assent. So in this case, make sure that before you're working with equipment or before you power your circuit, make sure that all connections are proper. You don't have broken wires. You don't have let's say connectors that are damaged or seem to be damaged, and make sure that all your colleagues know that you're going to be turning on a circuit. These will avoid any burnt equipment or any fire hazards or something catching up on fire. Unprofessional behavior, it's prohibited. It doesn't matter if it's with your friend or you know the TA and you're going to play a practical joke to the TA. You should be behaving in the lab professionally. If you want to go and play some jokes or have some horseplay, go outside to the park and play over there. In the lab, you should be working and you should be performing experiments. Unauthorized experiments are prohibited. You are not allowed to perform any experiment unless you have been authorized by the professor or the teaching assistant. It doesn't matter if you have seen this experiment on TV or you have seen the experiment on YouTube and they give you detailed instructions of how to do it. The lab equipment should be used only for laboratory purposes. If you want to do an experiment that it requires something else or that is not part of the laboratory procedure, please tell the TA or the professor, and they are the ones that either will authorize it or tell you no, you're not allowed to do it. So these are mainly the rules that we have right now for the lab. So at this moment, I already covered the different things. So now it's time for you to show me that you understand what are the rules. So after these go to D2L, there's going to be a quiz in there. You should be doing this quiz, and in order to pass it, you will need to answer 80% of the questions right. If by any reason you get under 80%, you're free to watch the video one more time and answer the quiz again. You can do this as many times as you want till you pass the quiz. Once you pass the quiz, you will have another quiz that is going to be basically a safety agreement. In this quiz, basically I'm asking you if you agree with the safety rules and you agree that you will follow them, and you will need to type your name in there. With these, we will say basically that you understand the rules and you are gonna follow the rules in the lab. So that's pretty much it for this video, guys. So have a nice day, and I'll see you in the lab.